Good afternoon and welcome to Politics in the Pulpit here on your hometown station, AM 1220 and 98.1 FM. This is the Bishop of Santa Clarita back for another opportunity to talk about the two things we're not supposed to talk about in politics or in public, politics and religion. Did I mess that up? Well, that's what happens on live radio. The bishop does occasionally make a mistake, and that's just to let you guys know out there that I am flesh and blood, and the only perfect individual, of course, is the Lord Jesus Christ, so there you go. Good to have you with us today. Thanks for tuning in. And we've got a lot to talk about. The news items are aplenty. We could talk about Trump and Greenland, which a lot of people are kind of concerned about. He made it very clear today that we are not going to take Greenland by force. By the way, there's like 5,000 people on the entire island. I think if we wanted it, we could probably just take it. But we will dedicate a future show to the importance of Greenland and why this is such a big deal to the Trump administration, and why strategically Greenland would be conducive for us here in America. And this is not, by the way, the first time a president has approached the Danish countries for Greenland. So we'll talk about that on a future show. But today, we are going to talk to Oscar Martinez, who is running for LA County Sheriff. Of course, he is no stranger to this show. He always comes in. He doesn't do what other people do, which is call in. But Oscar Martinez, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, the news over the weekend is basically these ICE agitators, these anti-ICE agitators who stormed into City's Church, which is a Southern Baptist church, on Sunday and interrupted an organized worship service. And before I get your comments on this, I think it odd that neither the Governor Waltz, nor Mayor Fry has said a word about any of this. But let me ask you, if you were the sheriff there in Minneapolis, if you had any say, what would be the Oscar Martinez approach to these anti-ICE agitators interrupting and completely dissembling an organized Christian worship service?
Not happening if I was sheriff. I don't care what city it is, anywhere in this county, you're not going to disrupt a worship service, whether it be a church, a Christian church, a synagogue, or a mosque. Notice I never take over a mosque. It's always church or synagogue. That's not going to happen under my leadership. I will make sure that I contact the pastor, the leadership right away, and if they're still there, I will have my deputies remove those agitators immediately. The basis of freedom of religion is fundamental to our Judeo-Christian nation. I will never allow that to happen. And shame for the sheriff right now who never said anything about this.
Absolutely. Not just the sheriff, but also the mayor and the governor, who, of course, himself is not running for re-election. There's been a lot of scrutiny on Governor Waltz because of all the Somali fraud in the state of Minnesota. But I was going to say a little bit later, but you've already said it yourself, Oscar. It is interesting that these anti-ICE agitators will go into a Christian church instead of a Muslim mosque. And again, I don't want to make too many inferences, but I'm going to just go ahead and just throw this out there. I think the anti-ICE agitators recognize the Sermon on the Mount where it says turn the other cheek, which is what Christians are encouraged to do, whereas in the Muslim mosque, they might just say, put your head down here. I might want to lop that off.
Correct.
So there might be a distinct difference between the reactions between the Christian church and the Muslim mosque. Well, let's turn our attention now to the state of California, and more in particular to the county of Los Angeles. You, of course, have been running to be LA County Sheriff for about a year now. The last time we talked in person here at the show, Alex Villanueva had barely jumped into the race. Have you had any kind of contact with Alex since he jumped in?
No.
No. And is your desire to basically make this a two-man race between you and Robert Luna?
Well, my desire is to win, Pastor.
Yeah.
That's number one. That's my desire, is to win. And our department, the Sheriff's Department, your Sheriff's Department, we need a new direction. I got all respect for Alex Villanueva for his multiple decades of service, but I believe it's time for a new direction. I believe the sheriff has to work with other entities in the county government. I didn't see that under Alex. I give him credit. He does care about the deputies. But again, the sheriff cannot do the job by himself. He has to work with other entities. And I will make sure that I work with others, but I will also be independent and answer only to we the people.
Got it. I want you to explain to our listeners, Oscar, what does it mean that the police department contracts with a city? What is contract city?
So a contract city, for example, this city, Santa Clarita, they don't have their own police department. So they contract with the county sheriff to provide that police service. You can have a full police contract like Santa Clarita and most of the cities. And you have, like, for example, the city of Lancaster, which has created its own police department because the sheriff is not providing the service that they promised in their contract. It's a way of saving money. It's a way of adding professionalism. And what I mean by that, I'm not saying the sheriff is more professional than a police department, but it adds more resources to that city. Everything comes with that contract: your homicide investigation, your SWAT operation, your SVB, sexual assault investigations, and so forth. So you have a lot of specialized entities that come with that contract. And any lawsuits or anything like that, obviously, every city pays a certain percentage of the contract into a liability fund. But for the most part, you're going to save a lot of money because for a lot of cities, if not for all the cities in California, public safety is the most expensive item in their budget. So that's the difference between a contract city and a non-contract city.
Okay, and so Santa Clarita would remain a contract city should you become sheriff.
100%. In fact, I have said this many times. I will support our contract cities to the fullest. This sheriff is not providing the contract cities the items and the resources they're paying for. Right now, I guarantee you, Santa Clarita, I believe, don't quote me, I believe they're working at a 75% capacity of what the city pays. And that can be said for a lot of the cities, especially in Lancaster. That's why they started their own police department under Robert Luna. So I'm going to make sure that the cities get what they paid for.
Yeah. You've been running now for about a year to be the next sheriff of LA County. Without getting into all the specifics, what have you learned in this process of running, talking to people, maybe people stabbing you in the back? What has been your lessons learned through this process?
Iraq and Afghanistan was easier than politics. That's number one. Politics is hard. It's dirty. For me, it's a little harder. I'm by myself. I don't have a party behind me. I don't have the big political machine. But nonetheless, I have the desire to serve my communities. And I strongly believe, and I said this to you before, law enforcement is the last entity in government that's still responsive to we the people. And under Robert Luna, law enforcement, our sheriff's department is being taken over by left-wing fanatics. I'm going to make sure that stops. So as far as what I've learned to be more independent. I've learned to work harder. I've learned to have more confidence in going out there by myself and speaking truth to power, basically, and to speak for our deputies. Because right now, no one's speaking for our deputies. Our deputies are out there working 24/7 for our communities, and they have zero backup from this leadership. And I just believe that's a shame. That's a shame. They need support, and I'm going to make sure that I support them while maintaining the standards at the same time.
About a year ago, California voters almost passed Proposition 36 with about 2/3 of support. And by the way, that is something that Californians don't do all the time because we disagree on the minutia, right? But for a proposition to pass so resoundingly, this tells us that the issue of crime is not just a Republican issue or an independent issue, it's a Democrat issue as well. We all want to live in a state, in a city, in jurisdictions that are crime-free as much as possible. But since California voted by almost 2/3 in support of Prop 36, I want to ask you, as you travel our county, and we also have a new DA that's been now a little over a year. We got rid of the prior DA, who was a wreck for our county.
Yes.
Whose name should not be mentioned because we don't want to extol the virtues of that guy. But District Attorney Hochman has been very good. But as you travel the county, have you noticed an appreciable decline in crime in the county, or what are your thoughts about the crime situation since the passage and implementation of Prop 36?
To be honest with you, I don't think anyone can answer that question. And here's the issue. Since that district attorney that you say should not be mentioned.
We don't talk about
We
it.
don't talk about him. But the biggest scandal that he left in our criminal justice system, he caused people to lose confidence in the criminal justice system. So what you have right now, people are not calling 911 and reporting crime. So the statistics that we have out there as far as crime, you can't rely on them. You have a lot of politicians saying, hey, look, crime is going down. But that's not true. The reporting of crime is going down. As far as DA Hockman, I can tell you this because I'm still active in the sheriff's office. I still work on a daily basis almost. The deputies and even other police officers that I talk to, they feel more confident. They feel supported by the district attorney, which is actually making them to be more proactive to go out there and protect our community. So that's actually changing as far as compared to the last district attorney. Of course, as you know, the state is not fully funding Prop 36, which, by the way, was not supported by this current sheriff, Robert Luna. So the district attorney, even though he has a desire to implement it fully, he's limited to what he can do or not do because, again, the state is not supporting financially Prop 36.
Let me go back to what you said just a minute ago, and I think it's important to underscore this for our listeners. Are you saying that when a politician goes out and says crime is going down in LA or crime is going down in the state of California overall, the stats are kind of skewed in the sense that it's just that people aren't calling 911 as much as they used to because the confidence level is so diminished?
That is correct, 100%. Or we're so limited as far as resources for law enforcement that they call to report, for example, a burglary. It takes us probably 3 to 4 hours to get to that report call.
And by that time, the house has been burglared.
Probably a second time. And they just say, you know what, I don't need you. I'm good. That report is never taken. That statistic never goes into the system. So I think we need to be very careful when we hear these politicians. By the way, they're not lying. Crime is down based on the numbers. But based on reality, it is not going down. It is actually higher, if you ask me. I just don't have the statistics to prove it right then and there because people are not calling 911 anymore like they used to.
Yeah. You know, my criteria for determining where crime is whether or not I can get my own deodorant in the department store without pressing that red button.
Absolutely.
Because it's unfortunate that I have 3 kids, and 2 of them have lived in a state where you can't just walk into a Walmart or a Target without having to push a button for certain items in the toiletry section.
I agree. My son loves Legos, and it breaks my heart every time we go get a new Legos at Walmart or Target, and we have to wait for someone to open the little cabinet because we can't just grab it like
All
we
I
used to in
want
America.
are some Gillette razors, man. I just want some shaving cream, and I've got and you know what's even funnier is when I push the red button, and this is not every store, but then they tell you to put your item in this plastic thing,
Yes.
and then take it to the counter and then have it paid for. I'm like, seriously?
And then they got to open the plastic thing.
It is absolutely mind-boggling.
But crime is going down.
But crime is going down. All right, well... A couple of weeks ago, in fact, a week and a half ago, in Norwalk, which of course would be in your jurisdiction here as
Yes.
LA County Sheriff, a Starbucks employee was fired. A couple of them were fired after giving a deputy a cup featuring a hand-drawn pig. Officials say was very offensive. First of all, why do you think the diminished role of law enforcement in the eyes of the people? I know that there's always been people that don't like law enforcement. There's always going to be people like that. But it seems as if in the last few years, that animus towards our law enforcement community has just kind of accelerated. In other words, our politicians, in a lot of ways, have poured gasoline onto that fire, causing doubt for people like yourself and others. Do you think that politicians are themselves part of the problem when it comes to the public looking at law enforcement the way they do?
If I may answer that in 2 ways. Number one, first of all, not to correct you, Pastor, law enforcement is actually one of the most trusted institutions in our country.
Good.
Over and over and again, the Gallup poll shows that we are number 3 as far as trusted institution. The military and small business owners are actually number 1 and 2. We're number 3. The bottom 3, Congress, politicians, and the media. So we have to be very careful with that. The media, the one telling you that there's no trust in law enforcement, are one of the least trusted in our country. So what you're seeing is a very silent minority speaking against law enforcement. And yes, politicians are the ones who are fueling that lie. Robert Luna, for example, will tell you all the time that we're gangbangers, that he's going to do X, Y, and Z to correct the many mistakes that we've done. But he never praises the great work that our deputies are doing out there. When I'm in uniform and I go to a store or something, obviously on duty, I don't go out there off duty in uniform. When I'm on duty, I get all kinds of accolades. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you for being here. If I was to work at IBM, that doesn't happen. It only happens to us, law enforcement and the military. So overall, the people do love their police officers and their deputy sheriffs. The politicians, however, like you said, are fueling this distrust, and you have people like the two employees of Starbucks that said, and they felt empowered to do what they did, and look what happened to them. They lost their job.
Yeah, the fact that they would draw a picture of a pig on the Starbucks cup and then gleefully hand it to that deputy tells me that and they're probably young kids, right? Under 25. They feel emboldened by somebody out there to be able to do this, thinking that there would be no repercussions for their behavior. And let me ask you this question. I know that you're running against Robert Luna, but according to this article in People about these two Starbucks employees that were fired, evidently Robert Luna went above and beyond to try to get a hold of the Starbucks branch and figure out what was going on here. What would you have done if this was your deputy and you were sheriff?
Well, first of all, I do want to give credit to Robert Luna for doing that. I appreciate that. But my question is, where was that support in the last 3 years? Why this year are you all of a sudden defending and protecting your
Because
deputies?
he's running for re-election.
There you go. There you go. Another thing I want to say that you ask about why these employees feel empowered to do this, it goes back to the family and how we're raising our children nowadays. You do have a lot of family members that are raising their children not respecting law enforcement. And eventually that's going to manifest when they become adults. So, I have to say that as well. It's not just the politicians. It's also how many children are being raised today to pretty much distrust their police officers and their deputy sheriffs.
And a lot of kids are, part of a single parent home. And again, not disparaging a single mom or a single dad, obviously more power to them. But it is more appropriate, more suitable, more conducive if you had a dad and a mom in an organized covenant marriage, obviously. And when that doesn't happen, it can sow distrust into our kids' minds. Correct. There's no doubt about it. Let me ask you this question. The primary's in June. You've made your case over and over again to the public, but why don't you just quickly make your case directly to the voters here on KHTS that you are the man to be sheriff of L.A. County?
Thank you. I fought 2 wars for this country in Iraq and Afghanistan, served my country in the United States Marine Corps. Once I left the Marine Corps, I joined the Sheriff's Department. I've been there for over 15 years. And I am running to be the next sheriff because I believe, like I said before, law enforcement is the only entity that's still responsive to we the people. We don't need to bring back the nostalgia. We don't need to bring back the old ways of thinking. We need to move this department forward. We need to have fiscal responsibility. We need to modernize our department. And we need to make sure that our deputies are supported when they do the right thing. I don't see this sheriff doing that. We are talking about the same scandals in the sheriff's department that we were talking about back when Leroy Baca was sheriff. It's time to move forward. I'm still working in the sheriff's department. I see on a day-to-day basis what's happening. I know what needs to be changed, and I hope that I have the support and the vote of the listeners.
If folks want to donate, if folks want to volunteer, or if they want to follow you on social media, where would they go?
They can go to oscarforsheriff.com. That's Oscar, the number 4, sheriff.com, and I appreciate any support.
All right, you know where to go, folks. Thank you so much, Oscar Martinez, running for L.A. County Sheriff. Good luck to you, and welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
All right, when we come back here, we might have a surprise phone call from somebody that's running for statewide office, but again, we'll see how that works out. If not, we're going to talk about anti-ICE agitators when we come back on your hometown station. All right, we're back here for our bottom of the hour segment on Politics in the Pulpit on your hometown station. We just talked to Oscar Martinez, who's running for L.A. County Sheriff. And again, check him out on Facebook, Instagram, and other social media platforms. Again, Oscar Martinez, or Oscar for Sheriff, and give him a like and follow and volunteer and donate if you can. We have a call in right now from candidate for governor of California, Sheriff Chad Bianco. Hello, Chad.
Hello, how are you?
Doing well. It's great to have you back on. And you were in Santa Clarita this morning, kind of driving through, had some breakfast, and now you're heading back home. How's the campaign coming along?
It's very good. We had a little event this morning, and like you said, and then, of course, it was early to get there, so we stopped for breakfast, met some outstanding LA deputy, some of LA County deputies' finest. It was amazing. So we had a good morning there. Now we're back on the freeway heading back to Riverside.
Well, one of the things that I've been saying on the show here for the last several weeks is that there is a very distinct possibility that California might actually do the impossible, and that is to elect a Republican governor in 2027. Now, I know my choice for Republican governor, and I think that choice is the sheriff of Riverside County. How optimistic are you, Chad, that California has had enough of Democratic one-party rule and that we might actually do the impossible and actually elect a Republican in November?
Very optimistic, and I'll tell you, I was very optimistic to even consider the run, and then making that decision to say, yes, I'm going to do it, we knew we had the possibility of making it happen. As we've gone through the last 11 months, it's turning into a reality, and we have to actually look and understand that even the Democrats are, I don't want to say they're conceding, but they know that I'm going to win this election. The Democrats are raising as much money as they can to specifically fight me. They are naming me in their campaigns. And then we have a governor who the media is actually reporting is setting our state up for failure for the next 4 years with a completely blown budget. He would never do that if he thought a Democrat was going to win. He knows I'm going to win, and he's trying to do everything he can to sabotage that term so they can use that against me and say that, look, I had all these wild claims and it didn't work. But they obviously don't know who they're messing with. We are going to make California the greatest state in the country again, and I think Californians are definitely ready for it. The polls are saying it. Our numbers are saying it. People all across California from both sides of the aisle are saying that we're done with politics. We want someone that actually cares about California.
If folks want to follow you, if folks want to donate, they want to volunteer to your campaign, sir, why don't you go ahead and give that a quick shout out?
Well, thank you very much. BiancoForGovernor.com, and on all of my social media pages, Sheriff Chad Bianco. Reach out to us there. We'll connect with you behind the scenes. You can help with the campaign, donate with the campaign. We've got some cool merch on the website. It's going to take an army. Make sure we save California, and we surely appreciate you being a part of it.
Sheriff Chad Bianco, thank you so much. Godspeed to you, and Lord bless. Hopefully, we'll see a victory in November.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Take care, sir. Great to have the sheriff calling in there. One of my deacons from church actually was at the Crazy Autos this morning and spied him out there. And so I asked him, I says, go over there and get his number and tell him to call into the show today. And he graciously texted earlier and said, I'm going to do it. And so I'm glad that he was able to do that. So again, I think we've got two fine candidates that are running. I've got my preference of the two. And so I'd encourage you to get out there and follow Sheriff Chad Bianco, donate and volunteer if that's something that you can do. The other thing that is so pressing right now is, oh, by the way, just on a side note, before we get into this whole, these anti-ICE agitators in Minnesota, where is our current governor at the moment? Obviously, you've got Sheriff Chad Bianco traveling the state. You've got Steve Hilton traveling the state. Gloria Romero, by the way, just threw in her hat for lieutenant governor, and it looks like that Gloria Romero is linking her arms with Steve Hilton, and they're kind of running as a unique president / vice president type of a ticket, even though it's governor / lieutenant governor. But it looks like that kind of a ticket is materializing there. That we'll see how effective that is going forward. Who knows? Perhaps maybe the sheriff might do something as well. But the news came out that where is our current governor? He is in Davos, Switzerland, at the forum. And what is he doing? He's fighting for California? Nope, no, not at all. He's not fighting for California. He's fighting against Donald Trump. Why? Because, listen to me, folks out there, the governor of the state is phoning it in. He doesn't care about California. He knows there's a good possibility that the governor's office might actually switch to Republican in 2027. There is a good, distinct possibility. And the governor is more concerned about 2028 and his presidential ambitions than he is in the bloated budget and all of the problems that have metastasized under his leadership in this state. Folks, listen to me. Don't continue doing the same thing. If you want the same results, the same homeless issues, the same fraud issues, and by the way, the fraud issues in Minnesota is absolutely nothing compared to the fraud issues here in the state of California. Our state we have a bigger budget than Minnesota. We're the 5th largest economy. Folks, when the Trump administration starts to turn their attention on the fraud in California, you will not believe just how bad it is. And the homeless industrial complex, all of it is because Democrats predominantly keep raising taxes, keep shoving the homeless issue into our faces, and nothing ever gets accomplished, folks. But yet, these politicians seem to be getting richer and richer. Well, I want to turn my attention now to the news that broke over the weekend that is still very much in the forefront of our minds today. And this is near and dear to my heart as a pastor myself. How would I react to a bunch of, anti-ICE agitators breaking into the Freedom's Way Baptist Church? Now, granted, we have some things in place to where that might be a little more complicated, but the fact of the matter is, how would I have responded? And some of you know that on Sunday, just a couple days ago, the city's church in Minnesota was infiltrated during their Sunday worship service by anti-ICE activists and BLM agitators who yelled and berated the congregants, causing many to flee the services with their children, folks. Now, the guy that was with them, Don Lemon, by the way, no one remembers Don Lemon anymore. Yeah, he had a career on CNN. He didn't have the best show. It wasn't very highly rated. Now he's an independent journalist trying to somehow make it seem like he's, straight right down the middle. But here's what I find interesting. While both protesting and worship are both protected as free speech under the First Amendment, what is not protected is barging onto private property and disrupting someone else's protected speech to peaceably assemble. Now, according to a statement put out by the leadership of City's Church, they are speaking with their legal counsel as to what they can do legally. And I say, more power to them. Last night, Homeland Secretary Kristi Noem was on Greta Van Sustren's show on Newsmax, and she said, quote, "Arrests are coming in Minnesota church invasion." She actually said, in hours. Now again, who knows? Maybe something's happening right now live, and I don't know about it. But we know that the vice president and several Trump officials will be convening into Minnesota in the next couple of days. Now the question is, why? What's going on? Now, what do I think should happen? I think everybody that's on that video, which is for anyone to see. If you're on X, you can see all of them. If you're on Facebook, you'll see some of them. If you're on Instagram, you'll see some of them. But X is really the forum for free speech right now. Thank God for Elon Musk and the purchase of formerly Twitter. But Don Lemon, there is no doubt in my mind that Don Lemon is complicit in this. And what does Don Lemon think about the parishioners of City's Church? What does he think about those who are worshiping and then have their worship service completely upended by these agitators? Listen to Don Lemon on a podcast a day later talking about his thoughts about those parishioners.
And there's a certain degree of entitlement. I think people who are, in the religious groups like that. It's not the type of Christianity that I practice, but I think that they're entitled, and that entitlement comes from a supremacy, a white supremacy. And they think that this country was built for them, that it is a Christian country, when actually we left England because we wanted religious freedom. It's religious freedom, but only if you're a Christian and only if you're a white male, pretty much. And so, yeah, I absolutely 100%, but it's an intimidation tactic. And, I said, I don't understand how I've become the face of it when I was a journalist. I do understand that I'm the biggest name there. And I'm also, as I was on with my producers this morning, you and Kylie talk all the time. My producers were saying, I said, how did I become the face of this? And my producer said, Don, you're a gay black man in America.
All right, so obviously he's playing the victim card there because, that's what Democrats, that's what leftists do. They play the victim card, especially when the heat started kind of coming out that he might be complicit in some of this stuff. Not all of it, but some of that stuff. And then here's the other thing that I want to say to Don Lemon. Not just white people are Christians, by the way. I mean, there are black people that are Christians. There are Asians that are Christians. There are Hispanics that are Christians. Where does he get off saying that this congregation was all white? How do we know they were all white? I mean, was he able to interview everyone there? Some of these folks ran out because of the agitators. Isn't he just assuming they were all white? So Don Lemon is playing the victim card here because he knows that he is part of this problem, and the Department of Justice and Homeland Security is going to start coming after him as well. I would be surprised if Don Lemon has a career in a month. Now, listen to Don Lemon talking to the pastor of Cities Church, whose name is Jonathan Parnell. I want you to listen to this, and then listen to the part where Don Lemon accuses the pastor of putting his hands on him. Listen to this.
It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship.
But there were folks who will.
I have to take care of my flock.
Okay, but listen, we live in there's a constitution in the First Amendment to freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest.
We're here to worship. We're here to worship Jesus because that's the hope of these cities. That's the hope of the world is Jesus Christ.
I want to be very respectful. Please don't push me, though.
We're here to worship Jesus.
Yes.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why we're here. Okay. That's what we're about.
Don't you think Jesus would be understanding
we're about
and love these folks?
We're about spreading the love of Jesus.
But did you try to talk to them as a
no
Christian?
one is willing to talk.
Okay.
I have to take care of my church and my family, so I asked that you actually would also leave this building.
You don't want us to chronicle what happened?
Unless you're here to worship.
I'm always worship. I'm a Christian.
We're here to worship. Yeah. We're here to worship. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, did you hear that part where Don Lemon says, I'm trying to be respectful, please don't push me? Now, you have to watch the video. I've watched the video like 15 times. The pastor didn't touch him. I mean, not at all. Was Don Lemon fishing for something at that moment? Was he looking for something to, in order to say, to somehow, put something onto this pastor? Just watch the video yourself. The pastor didn't touch Don Lemon. In fact, Don Lemon kept leaning into the pastor as he was questioning Pastor Parnell. And as he was leaning in, Pastor Parnell was leaning back. And it was almost as if Don was hoping something might materialize so that he might be able to say he was assaulted. And as he said in the previous clip in that podcast, I'm a gay black man in America, which, by the way, if I'm not mistaken, is a protected class for the most part. I mean, seriously, let me tell you what I think should happen. Every one of those anti-ICE agitators that went into that church on Sunday, unless they were worshiping, which we know they weren't, should be in handcuffs by this weekend. And Don Lemon should not be able to hide behind being a, quote, independent journalist. Because the fact of the matter is, in another video that you can see on X, Don Lemon was serving the agitators donuts and coffee, and as far as I'm concerned, seemed to be a part of the process. He was invited by these agitators to, quote, chronicle this as a, quote, journalist. That's the way they're going to frame it. The fact of the matter is, if you listen to that clip there with Don Lemon talking to the pastor, Don Lemon was lecturing him, and he did not want a conversation. He did not want a dialogue. He wanted to debate, and he was looking for a quick viral moment, but he's not going to get it. Let's pray and hope that justice is served in the state of Minnesota for the people of City's Church. When we return here on Politics in the Pulpit, we'll finish out in our last segment, and we'll catch you in just a few moments here on your hometown station. All right, we're back here for our final segment of Politics in the Pulpit here on your hometown station. While all the news was focused on President Trump's trip to Davos yesterday and today, and then, of course, Gavin Newsom and he sparring back and forth, and then Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent was also getting in on the action. And by the way, you should see some of these clips. It's a lot of fun. These guys definitely... there's no love lost between these three. There's no doubt about it. And there is no doubt in my mind that Newsom is wanting to be the Democratic answer to MAGA in 2028. And, you know, I will say one thing about Gavin Newsom that I think he's got going for him. He is the most convincing liar ever. I mean, the guy is just so good at it. And in many ways, I kind of covet that. Those are two things against my Christian faith, coveting and lying. But the fact of the matter is, I do kind of covet it because the guy is just so good at it. He's so smarmy. He's so slimy. And the problem is, I don't think his campaign, should he run, is going to make much of a difference in the middle of America. I don't think Iowa and, Montana and Wyoming and some of these, and Kansas are going to buy into his stuff. Now, he's going to definitely convince California. He's going to convince New York. He's going to convince New Jersey. He's going to convince all these blue states. But I think there's a distinct possibility if he does run in 2028, he's going to do his best to basically run as a common sense, middle of the road progressive Democrat who is not far into the weeds when it comes to these social issues. And you can already see him backtracking when he's doing his little podcast. I don't know if you saw the one from a few days ago with Ben Shapiro, and Ben Shapiro kind of took him to task on this whole transgender bender thing and how Gavin, kind of semi-agreed with Ben on some issues and then kind of semi-pushed back on a few issues. He's going to try to basically run as this centrist Democrat. Some of you a few months ago remember when we had the governor's race in New Jersey and in Virginia, and we know that the Democrats won both of those states in terms of the statewide race for governor. But Spamberger, who is the governor of Virginia, she ran as a moderate, and this is going to be their playbook, folks. They run as a moderate. They run as this sensible, common sense Democrat that's not going to go nuts. And then as soon as they get the power, they're going to just lurch hard left. And that's exactly what Spamberger has done there in Virginia. And trust me, there is going to be buyer's remorse in the state of Virginia very, very soon. So I'm just hoping that people can look past the rhetoric, can look past the good looks of a guy like Gavin Newsom, and that ever since the election of 1960, between Richard Nixon and John F. Kennedy, it just seems as if looks has been a big deal, and probably with one particular sex here on this one. But the fact of the matter is, John F. Kennedy looked great. You remember all the arguments. If you heard the debate between he and Nixon on the radio, everyone said that Nixon won that debate. If you watched the debate on TV, everyone said that Nixon lost, but Kennedy won. And, it is what it is. And, there might have been some shenanigans going on there in Cook County, Chicago, and things haven't changed almost 70 years later. Things are still kind of weird in Cook County, Chicago. Well, before we go off the air here, Jen Sparks is with us today. She's our board op today, and evidently, according to what she told me, she's going to be our board op now in perpetuity.
That's it.
How excited are you to be the board op for me?
It's a dream, really.
You're living it.
This is what I've been working for my entire career.
Yeah.
So this is the pinnacle of it.
This is where it
I
sparks.
can retire. Yeah.
This is good. Yeah. and by the way, if you're not watching on Facebook Live, Jen has a Michael Jackson T-shirt on.
I do.
Sweater. With "Beat It" on the front and something to the same extent on the back.
Correct.
Are you a fan of Michael Jackson?
I am. I grew up with him, so this is nostalgia for me, and it was a lot of fun. I took my kids to see MJ the musical at the Hollywood Pantages a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
It is returning this spring to the Pantages, and obviously he's a very controversial character.
No,
but I am able to separate those two things. So I appreciate his talent.
I say the same thing about my criticisms that I get about Frank Sinatra. Now, Frank Sinatra, of course, in my opinion, was the greatest singer of the 20th century.
Correct.
But yet,
Yes.
people say, well, what about his mob connections? And what about, his connections to, organized crime? I'm like, listen, can't you just acknowledge the guy has a great voice? Yeah. And he was a pretty decent actor, too. Won an Oscar, and then was nominated 2 more times after winning that Oscar. And I do the same. I try to separate the personal life, which sometimes isn't always great, from the professional life, which, as far as I was concerned, Sinatra was probably the greatest singer of the 20th century. And there's no doubt in my mind, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Michael Jackson, there's no doubt in my mind the man sold zillions of records.
It's
He's in the
incredible.
top 5 when it comes to Guinness Book of World Records. And he was a talent. There's no doubt about it. The guy could move.
He could move. There's so many people. Sports figures come to mind immediately, who maybe don't make the best choices in their personal lives, and we look the other way for that because they can throw a touchdown or
They can dunk a ball.
hit the ball out of the park. Yeah. So, I think it's best just to separate the two and enjoy them for what they offer. Plus, I love this sweatshirt, and it was on sale.
And this is the first time I've seen it. Is this a brand new sweatshirt?
It is fairly new, and it's funny. It's a man's sweatshirt. It's very.
Are you gender bending today,
very-
Jen?
No.
How dare
let's
you
not
do
get
that on the
crazy.
Bishop Show?
Let's not get crazy.
Okay, all right.
It's still too early for that. No, it's very comfy, and I enjoy it.
Oh,
So.
that's good. Well, real quickly, I know we only have a couple minutes here, but as I was talking to Oscar Martinez, who's running for LA County Sheriff, do you also find it interesting that when you walk into a store that your kids have grown up in a time when you can't just pick anything off? I mean, most of the stuff you can get off the shelf, but there are some stuff that you just cannot just grab. You have to wait and do that little red button. And
Yeah.
Isn't that just discouraging that our kids have to see that?
Well, they have to see it, but also for me, in a selfish way, it's demoralizing. You feel like, what, you don't trust me? Do I look like I'm going to take this,
I just
$5
want
deodorant?
deodorant.
Yeah. So in that sense, it almost makes me not want to shop at that store. And I know that there are several stores that, have to do that or choose to do that, but it's just frustrating.
Yeah.
You feel like a little kid who got in trouble, but you didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. My thing is this. I just want that hairspray. And of course, you're probably thinking, for what hair, Pastor? But I have a few strands up there.
There's a few.
And then I just need that. I just need those razor blades.
Yeah.
And yet I have to ask.
Ask Daddy to
I have
open
to
the
ask Daddy.
cabinet.
Yeah, exactly. I have
It's
to have-
embarrassing.
It's totally embarrassing.
Yeah.
Well, Jen, it's good to have you back in
Thank you.
studio.
Happy to be here.
And taking care of the board operating job there. And the rest of you folks, thanks for tuning in to Politics in the Pulpit today. It was great to have Chad Bianco. I was about to say Governor Chad Bianco. Well, what a Freudian slip there. But who knows? Maybe that's a prophecy of some sort. But we'll catch you the same time next week, same bat channel, here on your hometown station. This is the Bishop of Santa Clarita saying thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.